All right, Unit 3.3, Part 2. We're going to do a quick review of the notes, and then we're going to do 9, 11, and 13. And then remember, all the evens are your responsibility. Don't turn in a paper with just the odds. That's half credit. All right, a rotation is a spin around the fixed point called the center of rotation. It rotates at a specific angle and direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. Right, and for the purposes of this paper, and most commonly, it rotates around the origin. The rules: if you're going 90 degrees counterclockwise, you change the sign of the Y and switch your X and Y. If you're going 180 degrees, it doesn't matter clockwise or counterclockwise. They end up in the same place. Right? You change the signs of X and Y, but you do not switch X and Y. And 270 degrees counterclockwise, you change the sign of the X and switch your X and Y. All right, so let's go down to number 9. We're going 90 degrees counterclockwise, and we're making a square. So first things first, pre-image. A is -7.5. B is -4.7. C is -2.4. And D is -5.2. A, B, C, D. Now think, at this point you should be able to predict where it's going to end up. You're going 90 degrees counterclockwise. You're going one quadrant. You're going one click to your left. You should end up down here, and it should be spun just a little bit, right? One click to the left. Let's find out. Right, we're going to change our Y and then switch X and Y. So A prime, you're going to change your Y and then switch them. -5, -7. B prime, change your Y, then switch them. -7, -4. C prime, -4, -2. D prime, -2, -5. And then graph your image. All right, A prime is -5, -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. B prime. B prime, -7, -4. C prime, -4, -2. D prime, -2, -5. Yep. A, B, C, D. Back to A. Right? And not only did we predict it right about going to the next quadrant because it's only in 90 degrees counterclockwise, but imagine you picked it up and spun it 90 degrees. That's how you go from here to here with your B to B prime. You spun it. You're spinning it around the origin. All right, 11, triangle, 270 degrees counterclockwise. All right, pre-image, D is 4, 5, 4 to the right, 5 up, E. E is 6, 2, 6 to the right, 2 down, 6, -2. E. F is 1, -2. 1 right, 2 down. We have D, E, F. All right, we're going 270 degrees counterclockwise. So we're going to change the sign of our X and then switch our X and Y. Change the sign, then switch. So 5, -4. E prime. Change the sign of the X, then switch. -2, -6. F prime. I really hope you're pausing before I do these and doing them before me, because that's where all the awesomeness is in realizing you learned how to do it and you get the right answer. It's also where the fix it is, because if you don't get the right answer, you can go back and figure out what you did wrong, and this is how you learn. -2, -1. 5, -4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. D prime. E prime. -2, -6. 3, 4, 5, 6. And F prime. -2, -1. Right? 270 degrees counterclockwise. Yep, that looks right to me. It's more than half a circle, but not a full circle. 270 seems about right. D to D prime. All right, for the last two, be extra careful about reading the directions, because it says clockwise examples. And then it says hint. Think of the corresponding counterclockwise rotation and apply that rule. Okay, let's think about that. Let's think about exactly what it told us to think about. Let's go back to the rules and see if we can create a visual to help us do that. All right, let's see. Let's look at 90 degrees counterclockwise. So if we were going clockwise instead of counterclockwise, how would this get to here? So instead of going counterclockwise, you would have to go 270 degrees clockwise, right? To get it to the same spot. That means that 90 degrees counterclockwise is the same as 270 degrees clockwise. They have the same rule, the same function. They get to the same location. So whatever rule works here also works here, because they end up in the same place, right? So for 270 degrees counterclockwise, we went all the way here. But what would I have to do to get from here to here if I wanted to go clockwise? It looks like I would just switch it this way, right? 90 degrees clockwise. It's exactly the opposite again. So 270 degrees counterclockwise is the same as 90 degrees clockwise, which means this rule also works for this. Let's go look at that. Let's do 13. All right, because it's asking you to go 90 degrees clockwise, right? We just discovered that that's the same as 270 degrees counterclockwise. And what's the rule for 270 degrees counterclockwise? Change the sign of the x and then switch your x and y. That means this rule is also change the sign of your x and switch your x and y. Same rule. You're just coming from a different direction. So graph your preimage. L is 1,5. M is 3/8. N is 8,1. Connect. Get that out of the way. All right, and remember the rule. Change your sign of your x and then flip. So L prime is going to be 5, -1. M prime is going to be 8, -3. And N prime is going to be 1, -8. So L prime, 5, -1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1. L prime m prime, 8, negative 3, n prime, 1, negative 8. And I did it again. I hate when I cover it up. Right? You can visualize that we went 90 degrees clockwise. This time we went the same direction as a clock. 90 degrees. Which means we only traveled one quadrant, 90 degrees. Instead of going counterclockwise, this time we went clockwise. Alright? You should be able to do everything here. Turn it in as soon as you're finished so it's not too late.